How's it going, everybody? This is Dailies to Downloads. My name is Chad. With me, as always, is Erik. If you are just getting to know us, if you're listening to us, then we both previously wrote for a website, 411mania.com. Erik is still writing and doing various things with movies. Right, Erik?
That's what I tell people. They're like, what do you do? I do various things with movies. It's like, oh wow. And then I leave it at that. I never go any further.
That's on his business card.
Various things with movies.
Yeah. So that is what brings us to the table. This is a podcast all about movies, and we are going to start a 3-part series on the Saw franchise here. And we are going to start off by talking about Spiral. But before I do, just so everybody knows, we are now on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. Initially, this was intended as a visual medium, but if you're not wanting to watch us on YouTube, then you can listen to us. So please do us a favor and check that out. Give us a 5-star review if you think we've earned it. But let's get on with our review. So we are reviewing Spiral, and I am going to warn you right up front, there might be a spoiler or two regarding this movie. So if that bothers you, then you might want to not listen. Right here?
But if you're still on board,
download us anyway. Download us anyway, just so we can have the download.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Well, and trust me, we'll act it out scene by scene. So even if we do spoil it, you'll still feel like you got the entire movie.
That's right. So Spiral was released theatrically May 14th, 2021 by Lionsgate. It is directed by Darren Lynn Bousman, written by Josh Stolberg and Peter Goldfinger, which sounds like a Bond villain name, but
it might be an alias. I don't know. Maybe they're not proud of the movie.
But yeah, and as of today, now we're recording this as of May 27th. It grossed $16.8 million domestically and 6.7 in other territories for a worldwide total of 23.5 million, which might not sound like much, but during the pandemic, it is a significant sum, I would say, right?
Yeah. I think the biggest movie so far this year in theaters is Godzilla vs. Kong, which is like almost at 100 million.
Right.
Which is shocking considering the HBO Max dual release strategy. But yeah, right. 23 for this. Not bad.
So this is the 9th installment of the Saw film series. It stars Chris Rock, Max Minghella, Marisol Nichols, and Samuel L. Jackson. And it follows police efforts to stop a Jigsaw copycat killer. So that is the bare bones plot here. So before we get into our opinion of the movie, Erik, I know that you said you were going to, I watched it in a different way. So, okay. Erik, why don't you tell us what it was like revisiting the theaters for the first time in a while?
Well, for me, it was actually very nice because I went on a Saturday, very early on a Saturday, maybe like 12 p.m., 12 in the afternoon on a Saturday. And I was the only person in the theater. Now, wow. How much of that is connected to the pandemic or how much of that is connected to the movie or the time or whatever, I don't know. I was the only person in that auditorium. There were other people in seeing other things. Right. So for any reservations I had about going, those were pretty much put to rest as soon as I sat down and looked around. I think there's like a 600 feet distance between the nearest human being for me. So that was kind of cool.
Glad to hear that you socially distanced.
It was totally socially distanced. And it just felt good to be, I'm sure this will subside, but like subjected to like the trailers and other kind of things where, right. I try to like keep on top of a lot of those things, but through like social media and stuff, but like I'm not always sitting down and watching, trailer by trailer. So there were a few things that I became like, what a concept, aware of for the first time by sitting there and seeing these trailers, which is something we haven't had over the past year. So the actual experience was very normal, and I was surprised at how easy I kind of fell back into it, considering being away for over a year.
So did you get any concessions? Did they even have concessions offered?
They think they did, but I did not. No, I realized where I went to a Regal cinema locally,
Right.
and the box office was closed, and you had to like go to the concession counter inside to buy a ticket. I don't know why that is, but maybe they're
Right.
just cutting costs right now. I don't know.
That's happened.
Um,
That's happened in my area too.
yeah, yeah.
Now,
So,
I should add that Eric and I are in New Jersey and New York, so theaters have not really been open everywhere and at full capacity. So if you're listening in other areas of the country, it might be a different story.
yeah. So this was my first time back, and nobody. I will say, as you know, I always got to stay for the credits at the end and everything.
Yeah.
And I did feel bad because I mean, normally I don't care because I'm like, they're getting paid to work, so they get that. I'm just gonna sit here and watch the end of the credits. But now, like, I was the only person in the theater, and a guy came in who was obviously kind of like waiting for me to get up because he had to like um spray my seat down or the
Oh, right.
whatever. So I did feel kind of bad, but I'm like, okay, I'm gonna stand up at least, but I'm gonna watch the credits that way so he can, I don't know, wipe down my seat from whatever.
You're like, I'm going to stand up and straddle the chairs. That way you can clean mine.
Exactly. I was like, okay, so I walked to the side while he came up to do that for 5 seconds, and it was ready for the next show. But yeah, no, it was a cool experience having the Candyman trailer and like everyone's chanting
Oh yeah.
on the screen, Candyman, and I was just alone by myself. That was pretty
You
cool.
please tell me you were chanting it by yourself.
Yeah, but we're still wearing the mask, so I still respected the non moviegoers next to me.
That's I'm glad to hear it. So yeah, I mean, I don't know. You think this was a weird movie to take a stand on in terms of only being released theatrically? I mean, obviously it's made some money, but when you think about movies that are going to lure people back out, this one just happened to be timed during a moment where a lot of mask mandates are being lifted. More people are vaccinated. Somebody in Ohio just won $1 million for being vaccinated. Let's not go down that road. Yeah, they're
Wow.
offering incentives everywhere.
I
If you
was
get
wondering what
vaccinated,
I wanted to reach out to Leonard. I forgot about that. Wow.
yeah,
Wow.
Leonard has quit his job. No, it's
You
not
have
Leonard.
$1 million.
But
Wow.
but yeah, so a lot more people are being vaccinated, obviously. So and out comes Spiral, and I don't know if this was the movie that could be best time to get people really introduced to the theaters, but you went, and that's exciting. So
Yeah, and I think it is a good sign that like I think there's less on the line with this movie for like a
true.
studio.
Yeah.
So like this will at least get some people comfortable again.
But that's why these
Um,
movies were being pumped out what felt like every year because they're not super expensive to make. If you've seen all the other movies, then you know that they don't always hire like top name celebrities, so they don't have to worry about costs there. So yeah, I mean, you're right in that.
yeah, and I
Absolutely.
and I think as we're speaking now tonight, bigger horror, I think A Quiet Place Part Two and the
Yeah.
Cruella, and like so I do think some of those earlier movies saw, and I think maybe in one other movie that came out in the past couple of weeks, like has maybe getting people a little bit more ready. So by the time we get to the Fast and the Furious movie, it'll be more like back to normal in theory. Um,
So before we get to these, what we think of the movie, let's talk about the title for a minute. So when you look at all the film franchises out there and the way they've done titles and how they've tried to change things up or bring freshness to it, maybe, or bring a different angle to it, and they change the title, do you think that they should have just gone with Saw 9 colon Spiral or something to that effect? I mean, I'm just thinking off the top of my head, but do you think, because the last one was titled just Jigsaw, which is like, okay, so I don't know, what do you think?
um,
Do you prefer uniformity or do you not care?
I do prefer uniformity, but I also kind of like gave up expecting it
Right.
after a
Right.
certain amount, and I feel like yeah, with the last one being called Jigsaw, you can't then go back. You can't now say Jigsaw Part Two, Saw Nine, or
Then it's
like
going to turn into the Rambo franchise, and nobody
exactly.
wants that.
Exactly. So once you break away from it, I feel like then you can't go back, and it's just something I've gotten used to since
Right.
we started getting like horror remakes, and then sequels, but not to the remakes, but to the
Right.
other and it was just like, screw it. Like there
Because I
is no
guarantee they're
continuity.
going to go with Saw X next.
Yeah,
No
why
more.
not? Why not? I mean, it was like Saw 1 through 6, and then 7 was what, the final chapter or something like
Or
that.
Saw 3D or Saw the final chapter. Right.
Yeah, yes. So whatever. I think the title is ridiculous, just making it sound biblical, the Book of Job or the Book of But I think that's ridiculous. But yeah, the numerical thing, it is what it is.
right. No, I agree. So let me start here. So I had recently rewatched all these films. We'll get to what we think of the whole franchise in a later episode. But as far as this one goes, I have two different really ratings or ways of looking at it. On one hand, if I'm viewing this just in terms of the bubble of the franchise itself, I do think that this is an improvement in some areas over some of the recent installments that we've seen. There's many things that I think it does better. Darren Lynn Bousman, could argue that he's responsible for some of the better moments of the series. So the fact that he's come back to it now is possibly a positive thing for some people. Um, so that I view it in one hand in that way, that it's a improvement over some of the, I don't know, lackadaisical installments that we've gotten before this. On the other hand, as a movie in general, I would probably just chalk it up to being pretty mediocre overall. Um, and one of the things I think I had a problem with the most is, oddly enough, one of the things I was excited about. And that was when I saw that they had finally cast known actors in the police roles. I was like, okay, finally, because usually, like, you can't think of the people who have portrayed these. There's the Donnie Wahlbergs and whatnot, but like the people that have portrayed detectives in this series in the past are not exactly A-listers, and that's not a knock. It's just a fact. So when they had Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson, and Max Minghella has been here and there. Those are known actors. So I was like, okay, Chris Rock's leading this. It's a serious role. That should be interesting. The first scene, you see a little bit of that Chris Rock humor, like when he's undercover there, but then it totally shifts into a ultra serious role for him. I'll say this: he tries really hard, but in my opinion, it becomes overacted simply because he's trying so hard. The best actor, I would say, and he just kind of does his own thing, which is Samuel L. Jackson.
The best actor of this film is, we get it with an asterisk.
Yeah, I mean, he's not doing anything different than he has done before.
Yeah.
So it's just Samuel L. Jackson being himself, pretty much. So yeah, I mean, Max Minghella is fine. His role doesn't really have a lot of meat on it for the most part until it gets nearer to the end, obviously. But what did you think of the acting, Eric, or the
Um,
movie as a whole?
yeah, I mean, I think that was the biggest when this film was announced, that casting of the leads, where it was like, what? Why would Chris Rock want to do this? And Samuel L. Jackson, like, I'm not getting this. Is this going to be like a comedy version? And that at least gave me some hope, because I think Chris Rock is like a big fan of the franchise. That's what I read, and like he just wanted to do this. Like, okay, but unfortunately, yeah, it's not what we would say is a typical Chris Rock or Samuel L. Jackson movie. It is a Saw movie that features Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson. And I think that's kind of the mistake, right? Like, I think that's what's kind of sad. That I was like, well, I was hoping that they were gonna bring more of their star power and their sway about how the movie goes based on their star power.
Right.
But no, it's a Saw movie through and through that just happens to feature them essentially,
Right.
and that was disappointing. And yeah, I mean, Chris Rock, I just don't get the point of Chris Rock has so much charisma and charm, and to like not use that. And
Right.
he's not like Robin Williams, where he can do ultra serious and also be equally incredible. Or who knows, maybe just like this. I shouldn't judge him based on Spiral, about Chris Rock's acting abilities and more serious stuff. But
Right.
it just
Well,
seems
yeah,
like
I mean, I often look forward to comedic actors trying serious roles because a lot of the times I think that they have more range than they give themselves credit for. But this proves that it's not as easy as it might look sometimes with somebody like a Robin Williams. Um,
and
because
I mean the film does him no favors either. But
right.
like
Yeah.
so
Um, so yeah, I want to say that I wrote down that he was like not very interesting to watch, the Chris Rock character specifically, and that he was more like an admirable version of Denzel in Training Day.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that's pretty much that dynamic that they're going for with the cop
Right.
and the rookie cop, and you got a wife. You'll
Yeah.
once you don't see her on Christmas, she'll leave you a kid, and it's like, are we doing like some noir kind of thing, and that or neo noir with Training Day and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think that's definitely the kind of like that they're going for. It's like the grittiest French Connection you ever did see, even grittier than French Connection. But yeah, it definitely got that vibe.
Another big angle, and perhaps like a change to the series in a way, is that they cover a pretty hot button topic, which is police corruption. And I mean, this is on one hand, it's a deeper and more like immediate angle for the franchise to take. It's not strictly relying on the, whether you like the term or not, quote unquote torture porn um, angle. But I think that it was. I thought that part was interesting. But what did you think about the police corruption part?
Yeah, I mean, I thought that I think if I'm gonna remember this movie down the line, which I probably won't, but like it'll be because of that angle and the whole reason for for the serial killer's mo, where it just felt different. Now, of course, the other Saw films also dealt with that kind of like, well, actually, Jigsaw only goes after morally corrupt people, so he's actually like a sick,
True.
twisted. I don't know, saint or whatever, whatever you say. So in this case, when the killer is revealing his MO, like, okay, like obviously they have a legitimate beef, and
Right.
I totally understand that.
Right. And you know what? You touched on something there. So like, yeah, obviously we've seen many corrupt people in these movies before. So people listening to this be like, oh man, they touched on that before. Obviously they have to a certain extent. This time it feels a little bit more relevant to current news
Yeah,
items than
which
it has
which
in the past.
which is kind of interesting because of course it was supposed to come out May of 2020,
Right.
but of course, I do think when you are one another thing that I'll say that is kind of a spoiler, I guess, that is interesting, and I wonder if this came about in the script stage, is that when you do have African American leads, then as the law authority, and serial killers is not, I think that also makes it interesting because yes, it's relevant and topical now, but of course for certain communities it's been there for forever, right? So
Right.
so that's, I think there's that zeitgeisty feeling of it being out in 2021, but of course, it kind of goes to something deeper. But I think casting certain actors of certain races in roles that are almost like the reverse, I guess, of in some cases, if that makes sense, of what we'd expect. Someone unique.
Yeah. No. Yeah.
I mean, I'm giving it like the benefit of the doubt. Like there's no subtlety to any of this in the movie at all. It
Right.
beats me over the head with it, but
You have the old, white kind of gritty cops that are bad, but you also have, people of other races, obviously, that are
yeah,
not completely clean. So yeah, they don't really
yeah, and
pull
that's
any
why I
punches.
wondered, yeah, if the script had been written and then Chris Rock and Samuel L. Jackson were brought on,
Right.
or was it because that could have been the case? Because of course, some of the dialogue, like you mentioned that opening scene, I thought it laid it on too thick
Yeah.
with some of the words and the, and the music and everything. I felt like, okay, we're trying too hard. All right,
Right.
Darren Lynn Belsman needs to go back to repo the genetic opera again. All right, calm down. but eventually, I was like, okay, it seems like they may just be shoehorned into these roles and after the fact. But
right. Well, I'll get into my thoughts on some of the specific deaths in maybe our next episode. But I'll just say this. I thought that this kind of continues the series trajectory over the last few movies of like getting away from the initial objective of these stories and becoming more darker. And at this point, and this started when Costas Mandalore became the guy. It's less about copy, and like he kind of continued on the Jigsaw theme for a little bit, but it became less and less about Jigsaw's intentions and more about just assembling traps to make sure people die. Like this one in particular is more of a revenge movie than it is a giving you a choice. You have the choices, but it's not a 50-50 choice. Obviously, this is like a 90-10, like you're still gonna die anyway.
Yeah, it's I think literally one of them is like either die or sever your spinal cord, and it's like, well, fuck. I mean, that's not like asking me if I want chicken nuggets or I'm like, yeah. I mean, either way, I feel like, oh, I'm out, man. I'm out. Like in some of the other Saw films, the reason that they couldn't escape these traps is because they were being done by these copycats, right? And Jigsaw was still testing the copycats to see if they had moral standards. It got so muddled by that point, but that was a part of their test, right? But yeah, I agree that I don't even know how you could. It almost like I'm glad that it embraces literally like the game show aspect of it. Each one of these traps starts with like a siren,
Right.
and I'm like, okay, at least it's a game show essentially, right? You get 90 seconds to get out of the trap. I appreciate that, but
yeah. So although we have a more profound focal point to the story, like in the end though, they still do stick with the twist and the killer, getting his comeuppance or is escaping. In the end, you still have that, which kind of falls in line with the other movies. So I mean, my final thoughts here, Eric, whereas I would say it was better than the previous 2 to 3 installments. In general, the acting, the direction, the pacing aren't as inviting or as energetic as they should be. So I would give it a thumbs down. What do you think?
Yeah, I would definitely give it a thumbs down. Yeah, I agree with most of your points there. I would just say too that it's unfortunate that this is. You mentioned all the copycat killer aspect. It's like one of the coolest things I liked about the franchise is also I feel like what was its nail in the coffin was that in Saw 3 they killed the bad guy.
Right.
And they stuck to it. And so I applaud them for that. The problem is they still decide to make another 6 movies and he's dead. So
one wonders if they regret that now.
Oh, I'm sure they do. And so like when you watch this film, the guy is a Jigsaw copycat killer, but really he doesn't need to be.
Right, exactly.
It doesn't matter. It's like yes, bad puns and terrible metaphors like, hello, Agent Banks. You talked a lot during the movie, so now you're going to talk to the movie of your death, and it's like, why are you doing these puns and metaphors like Jigsaw, and it's like, it doesn't all, you need to, like, it's 2021 and we still have a grainy television set that goes on in front of the people getting killed by these traps. Like, what are we doing? Like, why are we still, what's with the fascination with pig carcasses? Why are we still doing this?
Right.
It doesn't serve any purpose to why this guy's MO doesn't correspond with Jigsaw at all.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's almost like they had the frameworks of a story, but they're like, oh, we have to make it somehow. We have to make it more of a Saw movie.
Yeah,
and so they incorporate the spiral, which
which I always thought of like a yin yang thing, but
right,
it's called the spiral or a target, but
right, yeah.
Whatever. But yeah, but this also embraces this series loves flashbacks.
Yes.
Flashbacks in flashbacks in flashbacks. to a guy may cough and that'll become a part of his MO at the end. And it's like,
Right.
oh, Jesus. It's like it becomes like, by the time I won't spoil it completely, but by the time they explain how we heard a baby cry, I was like, you guys, like enough of these like stupid. It
That's the
becomes
thing. They try to go overboard with like the every detail means something, type.
literally like it becomes like the final 2 minutes of The Usual Suspects,
Yeah.
where everything the guy said was a clue, and only that at the end, and it still doesn't mean anything. It's still dumb, bad writing. It's like, come on. In the bad editing, every time you get so into a trap, it like does the quick, flashy editing, strobe light stuff, so you're not actually seeing anything. But it's low budget. But yeah, I will say that I didn't really care for all that much. I will say though, I actually did like the last 5 minutes, 10 minutes.
Yeah.
Because yes, it ends as they always end, with a twist that involves the killer getting out. But this one is especially cruel.
Yeah.
And I kind of like that because
That's
it's
what I mean. The
cruel.
last few have been very dark in that
Yeah,
regard.
yeah, absolutely, yeah. And it's a dark irony to it as well, which
Right.
makes it even more cruel. So I actually did enjoy that. But obviously, we don't need to go any further with these. Tobin Bell, I think, was wise to kind of just. Um, I'm assuming he was asked to be a part of it, maybe, but I
Well,
don't.
I don't know. I don't know if he was asked or not. And obviously they don't use the same voice
Yeah.
with the tapes, but I've heard that he is more than willing to explore another movie if it like focuses on the puppet,
Oh. Yeah, yeah, yeah.
you know, so or the origins of said puppet. So I mean, he's certainly willing to come back, but
Oh God.
again, I don't know how Tobin Bell looks these days, but a prequel, I mean, we're talking,
Yeah.
it'll be 10 movies. So, I mean,
The franchise is in dire straits when we're talking about an origin of the puppet.
right. Yeah.
I think that's when it's time to hang it up, probably.
That's the thing. And that's the problem with a lot of horror franchises that they milk that cow until it's like there's nothing left. And it's like what's left for them to explore is maybe that puppet. I don't know. I mean, how many more
How
times are
did
you gonna
that?
do a copycat killer? How many more times are you gonna do a I was trained by Jigsaw? Like,
Mhm.
you can't do that stuff anymore. We've had now, like, I mean, technically Jigsaw, the movie Jigsaw, was like a half trained by half copycat type thing going on there. This one's strictly a copycat. You really can only get one copycat one.
Yeah.
I mean, if you do two of them, it's like, why?
Yeah.
So
And Jigsaw, the previous one, almost had its cake and ate it too. It was prequel slash sequel, but you didn't know that until a
yeah, don't
flashback again.
right.
So they've really. I'm sure we'll get more, and we'll find out Jigsaw was actually running a for-profit college where he was training new killers, and that'll be the next 20 movies. So
I've been waiting for them to be like he faked his death. I don't know how they'd be able to pull that off with how he died, but like,
I mean, again, like that's what was I thought was so good. Like, and then the fourth one opens with literally a lobotomy, going through his guts.
that was the goriest one for sure.
Yeah, yeah.
For
It,
sure.
it was almost like daring the next films to like, well, there's no way you can take this back. All right.
Yeah, see, that's the confusing part. Like, why would you write that in if you know that you're only part of this cog? Like,
Yeah.
but it's like, nope, we're gonna make sure everybody knows he's dead. Look at his guts and his rib cage.
Yeah, I mean, at the time I thought that was really cool and it was like a definitive statement, but of course, not definitive at all.
Right.
So.
Well, let us know what you think of Spiral if you indeed chose to see it. I think that it comes out on demand in September, maybe sometime September or October, one of those. So let us know what you think in the comments. Like I said, give us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. If you don't think Spotify has reviews, but you can give us a review there anyway. But next week,
write to their customer service department and ask for a place to write your review.
That's right. Next week, we are going to be going over our favorite and perhaps least favorite traps / kills of the Saw franchise. So that should be fun. So for Erik, my name is Chad, and this is Dailies to Downloads. We will see you next week.